This time, we'll be talking about the process and the general overview of respiration. Now let's first begin by observing glycolysis. Now glycolysis actually is numerous parts put together. The three main stages are the priming of reactions, which is simply getting the glucose, the 6-carbon glucose, and putting it and then attaching ATPs to it. 2 ATPs to make the reaction occur. Now what happens is the second stage, cleavage. This is when the 6 glucose actually cut in half. Therefore, there will be 3, cut in half, 3, creating 3 branches. Now these 3 branches are the 3 carbon sugar phosphates. Now what we also must realize is to create this, there was a use of ATP. 1 ATP and 2 ATP, or second ATP. Oops. Now, what we have to observe now is that the process of oxidation and ATP formation, we can see that as this process goes through, numerous times it is hit with the phosphate ions. P1, P1. So after that it creates NADH on both sides. For sake of demonstration, I'll just be using one side. So, after that's created, ADP comes in, which ADP means adenosine diphosphate, and it reacts with the 3-carbon sugar and creates ATP. Now this happens twice on this side, which means it happens twice on this side as well. But we also must realize is that the initial process took 2 ATP. 2. The overall resultant, there were 4. So the net equals 2 ATP obtained in glycolysis stage. So now, what are they called? They're called pyruvates, and they're all 3 carbon chains. And there's 2 of them at the end of glycolysis, a rotation of glycolysis. Now, what makes it so vital and makes it connect to the Krebs cycle is acetyl-CoA. Now, acetyl-CoA goes in and takes away a carbon from the 3-carbon chain and creates CO2, mixing with the oxygen outside. Now, this starts the Krebs cycle. Now, oxaloacetate is a 4-carbon sugar, which combines with a pyruvate. It creates CO2, but through the stage of CO2 it creates ATP, 1 FADH2, more CO2, then it goes to create 3 NADH, and 1 more ATP, and then oxaloacetate. However, this is only for one of them. That's for one cycle. However, because there are 2 pyruvates, we multiply this by 2. And there will be another CO2, another ATP, another FADH2, another CO2, another 3 NADH, another ATP, another oxaloacetate used. So as you can see, the whole process creates 6 NADH and 2 FADH and 4 ATP. However, because we're only dealing with one cycle, for one cycle it creates 2 ATP for the sake of demonstration. So once again, I explained before, it goes on to talk about how NADH also goes with the FADH to the electron transport chain. So what exactly is the electron transport chain? Electron transport chain is when the NADH and the FADH, as I explained before, goes through, the electron passes through, hydrogens get expelled. Now this demonstrates how a key concept called the concentration gradient. Now we are aware that from before that the H plus ions are here from the oxidation of NADH. However, now we're also dealing with the H pluses here. Here and here. What we can realize is that now this has somehow get across to the matrix area, and this is used through the concentration gradient. Now, as the name implies, the gradient is a high concentration going to a lesser concentration and evening out. Because for every 1 H plus goes out to the matrix, there's 3 going downwards. Therefore, the concentration is heavier on this side. Now, it doesn't simply just diffuse to the membrane, because that will create no energy. It actually goes through the process of chemiosmosis. Now this is very key because this is the key energy producer of the whole system of our cellular respiration. Now the hydrogen goes in, pushes through, rotates this, creating energy. Now this energy converts ADP to ATP. And to be exact, this creates, as a matter of fact, 32 ATP. However, of course, it all varies, but then this is a general number. Now, once this happens, the hydrogen atom goes through. And once again, it combines with this oxygen right here, such as before, the H plus ion. It combines together, creating more H2O. So it goes through and creates H2O like before, when we did not consider the concentration gradient. But now, considering that, we create more H2O, but also at the same time create 32 ATPs. So let's review again what we learned. The first one was about how glycolysis works. It starts with 6-carbon chain glucose and splits into 3 and 3. And then they're called pyruvates, which are 3-carbon chains, and there are 2 of them. Then acetyl-CoA comes in and takes out one of the carbons in one pyruvate, and that creates CO2 as a byproduct. Now through that CO2 we create ATP, more FADH2, more CO2, more NADH, and more ATP. However, the big kicker comes in when the electron transport chain, where the big powerhouse is. If you notice, glycolysis only produces 2 ATP, Krebs only produces 2. But through the whole process of the electron transport chain, it creates 32 ATP, a huge increase. So as you can see from this diagram, it is obvious that ATP is a huge issue and huge byproduct of this whole process of cellular respiration. Now as you can see, through this whole process, we can see how much of each energy of each stage releases and what products are formed in each stage.